Greetings. Some of you might have followed along from my Monday video, I believe. I believe it was Monday. Not sure. I made a poppet for healing. This is a healing poppet for my husband's upcoming knee replacement surgery. And I showed you what I put in it. And I said I would be doing some videos, some future videos, different stages of this process for him for healing. One of which was I was going to make special incense to use in our bedroom, basically, or anywhere, maybe even just to smudge him too, but basically for in the bedroom, because even though, of course, he will not be confined to bed, part of his healing process is going to be getting good rest. So I wanted to make sure the atmosphere that he's going to be in while he is healing from his surgery is the best it can be for that purpose. But I also want to, we're working hard to prepare for his surgery the month before. And the surgery is scheduled for the beginning of May. So I'm trying to get everything finished up by April. So in April, for the month of April, we can do things to prepare him. Actually, he's doing special exercises to prepare himself, etc. Also, getting his frame of mind, in the right place, because I'm going to tell you, his age is 70-year-old man. He doesn't mind if I say, I don't think. It's hard when these things start to fail on your body. It doesn't help. The aging, how you feel about getting older, does not help at all when your body is kind of falling apart. But we want to keep his spirits high. We want to keep his attitude into a place it needs to be so he can have good healing. So anyway, I just wanted to show you today what I'm doing for the incense, because I'm trying something different that I haven't done before. Those of you who have been watching this channel for a while know that my normal practice is I make my own incense blends, dry blends, that I also sell them. But the reason I started is there are certain things here in California, particularly that I can't on my property, they grow kind of like weeds. One thing that grows kind of like a weed, that I have a huge, I've had a California white sage bush, of course. I always have sage. I always have lavender. I always have rosemary. There's some things that I use a lot in my practice that I have grown much more than I could ever use for cooking or for whatever. And of course, California white sage, you don't consume that. That's not an edible form of sage. But and some of the other things I grow really well are really good magically, good for incense, good for these things, but not so good. I don't want to waste. I don't like to waste. That's one reason I like to make my own incense blends. Another reason I do use stick incense and I do use cone incense, like everybody. I don't use a lot of it because I got out of the habit, to be honest. I used to have some friends who were in my home quite regularly who were very allergic to the perfumes that were in some of those artificial blends. And the cones and the incense sticks mostly that you buy do have additives in there that are not, something people might be sensitive to. I don't have a terrific problem if there's I don't have a terrific sensitivity to them because, again, I live in Southern California. My windows are open almost all year. Like this time of the year, I close most of them, but I'll be honest, my bedroom window is open almost all year. It's open now. I just put on a blanket, a bigger blanket, because I do like a little bit of air. But so we have enough fresh air in the room at all times that we don't have to worry about things like that so much. Okay, but I do recognize that they're convenient. It's frustrating to try to deal with the charcoal disc all the time. So when I got the idea that I could make my own cones for certain things, particularly for things like this I want to use, where I want to burn the incense in the room and maybe not be in attendance in the room while it's burning all the time, like burn it before we go to bed or whatever. If I could make the cones and burn them that way, oh, wouldn't that be convenient? I could just light a cone every night. That'd be lovely. So I'm going to give it a try and see how it works. Okay. And to try, because I really don't do this very often, but to try, I wanted to show you, I made some cones a little earlier today They're drying right now here on this plate. I hope you can see. These are cones that I just made from California white sage that was dry. I grew in my yard, and I powdered it, and then I added water to it. I combined it with something called maca, which we will talk about in a minute, and then I formed them into these little cones. And I'm going to show you how I formed the little cones to make these little cones. And they're just drying, and after, maybe tomorrow I'll turn them over so the bottoms, make sure the bottoms are dry, and when they're good and dry, I can store them just in a jar, and I can keep making these because I have a lot of sage. I have a lot of sage. So, I hope that helps. But before I get into it, I want to say I've got papers everywhere, like I usually do, because I was doing a lot of research to try to come up with the right proportions. If you Google or you put in a search how to make cone incense or whatever here on YouTube, you're going to find a lot of different variations, a lot of things that people do. Some people don't add anything other than just their aromatics or resins or whatever and water. I guess that's possible. That's possible. But all the research that I have done tells me that we need certain properties in order to make a good incense. And I know that from just making my dry incense blends. I do like to have a combination of ingredients. First things first, that every incense blend, about half of the blend really should be something they call a base, which is the heat source. It's the things that keeps it burning. If you've ever had incense that you put on your disc and it keeps going out all the time, or it won't light at all, the problem probably is the proportion of a base, the proportion of the wood, usually a wood powder or a resin, something that is in it, which will enable it to, so it burns at a good pace and it burns evenly and it continues to burn. That's very, very important, okay? Another thing, and then the aromatics, of course, are the things like your herbs and stuff, if lavender or, whatever you want to put in there. But I want to remind you that when things are burning, they don't smell the same as they do if you go out and go in my garden right now and my lavender's blooming. If you want to go in to smell my lavender, smell the flowers, lavender flowers, you know what that smells like. When you burn lavender, dried lavender, it doesn't really smell the same way. That's why a lot of people added a essential oil to their incense blends, because they want it to smell like it does in the garden. But, for me, I'm more interested in, I don't want it to smell horribly. I don't want a horrible smell. But I do want, I'm looking for the properties, the healing properties that it'll give me, or the magical properties it'll give me. That's what I'm looking for in an incense. Okay, so I'm not so concerned about the scent, but I am. But it's also, that's the main purpose. If your main aroma is a lavender, then no matter, even though it's less than half maybe of the blend, it still is referred to as a lavender, incense. Then we use something like a binder, which helps to keep it together. It's something that holds its shape. And usually that is often used something like some kind of a gum arabic or something like that. Or again, your wood or your powder. Now what I use, what I've come to use, is something that I purchased several years ago online. It's called maca, and there's the tape, M-A-K-K-A, maca, I believe you pronounce it. And this is it's a little bit of a confusing ingredient you might find, because who knows what it is. Basically, maca, let me see, I'm going to check my notes. I don't want to misspeak, but maca is a binder, something that is used as a binder. And it was used in Japanese incense for centuries, actually. It was first used to replace sandalwood, which, sandalwood was commonly used. But sandalwood it became difficult to obtain, and it became very expensive. And so they started replacing it with maca, which I believe is a bark of some kind of a tree. I think that's what it is. I'm really sorry that I can't say. What I do know is there are different types of maca. And one is something called tabunoki. Tabunoki. It's Japanese. I don't know what that means. I don't know. But it's you might come across that term when you're looking for maca. There's another kind of maca that is not tabunoki. I don't know what it's called exactly. And I've tried to find the difference, if it matters if it is tabonoki or not. And I believe it is having to do with what it is. If it is tabonoki, it is supposed to just be an unscented plain, contains nothing but that ground up bark, okay? That's what it's supposed to be. And if it's not, it says tabonoki, if it says some other kind of maca, it's probably just, it probably is scented in a way, just marked maca. And it might be scented with something. It might contain other things, one of which is clove. Clove is commonly used. I'm not sure why. I really don't know. Maybe it helps with the burning. I don't know what it is. But I do know they're a little sometimes vary in color. And this one, if I open the bag, even though this, okay, if I open the bag and I give it a little snippy, it smells clovey to me. It smells not strongly clove, but it definitely smells a little clovey, and it's a little darker color than some I've seen that is lighter in color. So I would say that this should rightly be marked just maca. I don't know if it's maca or mako. Now I'm getting all mixed up, but I think it's mako. I think it's mako, and my husband wrote maca, or I wrote maca. Look at me blaming my poor husband who's not here to defend himself. This tape has been on here a long time, but I think it's mako. Actually, mako powder. I should look that up. I just looked it up, and this is incorrect. It is mako, M-A-K-K-O, mako. I'm going to try to edit this out. I don't know if I can, but I put this on here from memory a long time ago, and it was not. I didn't know what I was talking about. But it's mako, M-A-K-K-O, mako, and mine was marked mako, M-A-K-K-O, but it said tabu no ki, which meant it should be unscented, but I don't think it is. Does it matter whether you use mako or not? I don't think so. I don't know, because I've only ever tried to make the cones with mako. But I'll tell you what I used to make the cones that I just showed you. I used 3 teaspoons of my ground California white sage, dried California white sage, ground into powder, 3 teaspoons, 1 teaspoon of mako, which is probably tabonoki. I don't know, maybe not, because it was marked that way. I don't know. And then I used water, distilled water. I didn't use distilled. I used filtered water, taking the chlorine out of the water. And I didn't have a dropper. I think droppers are good. But I don't know how many of these, maybe 8 full things. I don't know. I added them just gradually, one and mix, and one mix, and another one and mix, just till I got the consistency where I could pour it into a ball and it held together and it did not clump. And I will show you how that goes. I will show you how that is, okay? Because I don't want to, I want to show you how I made it so that you can see me make it, okay? But it was important that I talk to you about what I put in it so that you, in case you want to make it yourself. Okay. Now, in order for me to make, anyway, I just want to say the proportions, the recipes that you find, the only thing you can do is try the recipe yourself. If you find a recipe that you want to try, just try it. Just make a very small batch, just a little small amount, and see. Enough for, 5 or 6 cones maybe. This one I only got 4 cones out of this one. So just make enough to see if it holds together, and then see how it burns. Write down what you mixed, and then you can go back, and if it works well, then you know you had a good recipe. If it doesn't work well, tweak it however you want, make a couple more cones, and try it that way. You might find it's just easier for you to buy cones. To be honest, I think most people would just say, screw it, I'm just going to buy some cones. That's okay. But this is just, I do things this way. And so I want to remind you what I made. So I came up with a formula. I just made this recipe up. I don't even know if it's going to work. I haven't tried it. So I'm going to say what I'm going to put. I'm going to try it. My recipe, my research tells me it should work. Okay, I was looking at some recipes that I saw other people use. People that make it quite regularly, I would think, from the way they speak. And I would try to replace some proportions with the mako use how much mako they use, how much of the aromatics, how much, those kind of things. And I came up with general proportions. We'll see how it works. I'll let you know. Okay. But what I came up with is, this is the ingredients I'm going to be using in mine are, first of all, remember when I was making the poppet, if you saw that, I had some of the stuffing left over. I could have stuffed it all into the poppet, but I decided that I wanted to keep some to use in the incense. Okay. And what I did is I took all that I had left over, and I put that in my grinder. And by the way, when I talk about a grinder, I'm using this ancient 5,000-year-old wearing coffee mill that's electric, that is such a mess. I don't even know. I think I got it at a yard sale like 100 years ago, when yard sales first were born. And it's really on its last legs. But it works. If it works, why do I get rid of it? I wouldn't. But because you really want the powder. I usually use a mortar and pestle for most things when I'm grinding up my incense. But for making these little cones, you really want it to be as fine of a powder as you can get it. Because you want this, first of all, to be homogeneous. You want everything to be blended equally. And then you also want it to be fine particles. If it's big clumps, it won't hold together well. It'll fall apart when it burns. You want it to be able to stick together really well. Because that's one of the magics of mako when we talk about it. Mako, the fact that it's usually unscented, or if it is, have a little bit of clove in it. Clove is used in so many things. There's not a problem with having a little bit of clove scent to them. But the biggest thing about it is it allows your blend to burn evenly and smoothly. It is water soluble, so it mixes really, really well, and it gets lost in the mix. It helps hold things together when water's added, but then it gets lost, and you don't really. It just becomes becomes one with the incense. So it's really a very valuable ingredient, mako. If it was so valuable, why didn't I pronounce it right the first way? I'm not sure. I guess I was looking at this old tape that I put on here, but I didn't really know. Okay, so I'm using this. I dried this up. I'm going to use that, and this contained. I wanted to remind you what was in here. I have some rosemary from my garden, some juniper berries, some lavender, basil, chamomile, some orange peel from my tree, and pennyroyal. I also have some pennyroyal, because pennyroyal is really good to get a nice, peaceful, calm atmosphere. So I really like that. So that's in here mixed up. Okay, so I took that. Not going to be using the sage. That's different. So I have that. Then I have I have lavender. I'm adding on to that lavender. And this I have lavender flower. I had lavender leaf in here. I put lavender flower in this one, dried lavender flower. I also have, let me move this out of the way. I also have lemon balm. I put lemon balm here that I want to add, and copal resin. And if you don't know copal, well, first of all, there's my lavender flower. See, I just have tons of this. It's really beautiful. I use it for all the kinds of things. I also use it in culinary things as well. But I also want to say copal. And copal, if you haven't seen copal, it comes in resin form. Things that come like this, like little rocks, that's a resin. And this is used so often in so many things. I love the smell of copal. I swear you will love the smell of copal if you've never used it. Okay. And then my mako. I had to cut, so I had to fix this because this was driving me crazy. Mako. M-A-K-K-O. And I apologize. Mako. And I put tabo no ki, so you can maybe see tabo no ki. Can you see that? If I put the paper behind it, maybe you can see it. Tabo no ki. In case we want to search for it. But again, I'm not sure this is tabo no ki, but who am I to say? Who am I to judge? It doesn't matter. Okay. Anyway, I want to show you what I'm good at. This is the recipe that I decided on for my poppet, for my healing poppet, Just so see, I have everything divided here in the little dishes. Just to give an idea, I want to show you how I'm going about the business. I have a shallow dish here so you can see. And I have proportions. I'm going to start with, I don't have a lot of some of these ingredients, so I'm only going to do one recipe full and see how many cones that makes. So I'm going to do I start with the puppet stuffing. 1 part, here I have a teaspoon, I'm just using that. So I just have a level teaspoon, 1 part of the puppet stuffing, 1 part of lavender, so that would be 1 teaspoon again of lavender, 1 part of lemon balm, teaspoonful of lemon balm, 2 parts of copal powder, which is now powder. And some of these things, you know, you can buy them already powdered. Places like, where? Mountain Rose Herbs or something like that, they sell them powdered. You don't have to, they're a little more expensive if you buy them powdered. And you're also limited to powder. And then the mako. I put all these in here. And then the mako, which I'm in here. And this, I want 2 parts of that. So just set out on 1 compound to contaminate. So I'm going to do 2 teaspoons. I'm going to have to put this in a dish because this is going to drive me mad, I can tell right away. One, 2. Okay. I think I should have it. And the idea is, I want to stir it just to get it all the same color. So it's all incorporated, all blended really well together. That's the most important step. We don't want clumps of one thing or another. And hopefully it'll blend really well. My apple-shaped dish makes it a little complicated. If I had a round dish, it would be better. But I found in the past that it's just so much better to use a shallow dish when I start to add the water, because when it's deep, I seem to make a mess, especially in a small dish. My hands are a little big and they get in the way. But I don't want to see any bits of white or any bits of, you know, dark. I want to try to get it all the same color, just like you're mixing up a recipe or something. That looks pretty good. And again, I'm mixing with a toothpick too, because that's even better, a better mix than I get with a spoon. Okay, now when I made it before, I had about 4 teaspoons all told of the dry ingredients, and I used my water, and I ended up using maybe 6 or 8, 8 to 10 maybe of these syringes. It's just little syringes I had laying around the house. A dropper work, an eyedropper will work. I have tons of these because I have always had to give cats medicine, and so I have a whole lot of these little things. But anyway, I have about twice as much as I made before. So I'm going to put in, I know where to start. But basically, I'm just going to keep adding. And you could use a teaspoon, but it is just so much better to do it a little bit at a time. I know I'm going to have at least 4 of these, so I'm going to go ahead and add 4. But I don't want it to be, I don't want to get it too much. You can't take the water out once you put it in. I remember when you're stirring anything and trying to get water to a dry substance to hydrate, you need to stir it a little longer than you think before you make the call if you need to add more water or not. Because it sometimes takes the dry ingredients a little bit to think about what you're doing before you add it, and to start to make little clumps. But I know I need more, so I'm going to just do a couple at a time. And again, this is just filtered water. I just filtered basically the chlorine out, just like I was going to drink it. But a lot of people like distilled water. I don't normally use distilled water for most things. except for maybe my iron, but I don't iron, so I don't know. I might not use it at all then. Oh, I know, my husband puts it in, oh, he puts it in a CPAP machine, but he doesn't even use the CPAP machine, so we can get rid of that distilled water out of the house, I guess. I don't know. So, no, I iron sometimes. Sometimes when I'm sewing, I have to iron, but I don't iron clothes usually. Okay. Lots needs lots more. I can tell it's still very dry. Okay, and I'm just gonna you know, the advantage of this, if you first of all, when you buy this Mako, there I go again. I've been looking at that tape for so long. I'm mispronouncing it. I apologize. I hate that. I'm not taking the time to pay attention to what I'm talking about. Once you get the hang of making these little cones, see, I can find this to be a real interesting thing. And I will let you know, like, of course I have to allow these to dry. So I'm not going to be able to show you today, but definitely when I go to when I go to baptize the poppet before I'm going to use it, I will put that whole thing on the video. I will show you the whole thing so that you have, and then you'll be able to see me burning the incense. And I'm also going to make some oil. I don't know, that'll probably be on a Monday video, one of my Motley Mondays, because it doesn't take long. But I need to make a healing oil to use on him, both him and on his poppet. The idea of a poppet is, you know, whenever I baptize, when you have a poppet, I will baptize it, I will call it by name, and I will tag it, and I will say, you know, whatever I do to you, I do to Joe. So if I put an intention on the poppet, my intention goes on Joe. If I put oil on the poppet, that helps. And imagine, you know, if I'm going to put it on both Joe and both the poppet, that's a real good tool. Yes, it's possible to just, you know, I could just do this directly to Joe. But when you use a poppet, it's like, it's a magnification of your spell. It's a magnification of what you're already doing. Now, I could take my little spoon here. I think I'm holding this out. I can't even tell. This camera, I'm not able to see what I don't see myself. So I'm not sure what you can see and what you can't. But what I want to show you is, I want to add enough water before I stick my hand in here and commit to getting a gooey hand. I want to just start using my spoon to see how this is going to hold together. Because I want it to hold together. The idea is, I do want it to hold together. I make a little ball, but I don't want it to crumble. I don't want it to be so easily crumbled. Okay, and I think this might be good. I'm not sure. Might be perfectly good. I have a tissue here I can get. I say I did not bring anything to dry these on. So, let's see. Oh wait, I know what I can get. I have a little card here. Some of you may have seen me in the past where I have a little bracelet here. I have this little bracelet that you see me sometimes wearing. It's a little sea turtle, turquoise on a sea turtle here. And I put her on a bracelet here of howlite, and I have some snowflake obsidian that I wear sometimes because it's a little sea turtle from the Sea Turtle Conservancy, which it's a donation from Wildlife Collections. You make a donation, and then you're able to track. There's a little one of those little magic code things on here that will help you track the little tracking device on your little turtle, and you can see where she's going, which I wear that from time to time. But anyway, I keep the card here because it tells me all about her name. Her name is Sandy. The turtle that I track, and she's an adult female loggerhead sea turtle, and she's been swimming around the Florida waters for a couple years now. She's about a year or two. She's under doing some swimming, and they're still tracking her. So that's interesting. But anyway, it's a coded card, so I can use this to put my cones on. And what I wanted to show you, I have a little trick that I picked up in my travels. In order to shape them into little cone shapes, if I can put it right there, have this little pointer, one of these little tips for a piping bag that I have. I don't pipe a lot of stuff, but I can make cones, and it's a perfect shape. And so what I did is I found, this is a good trick. I take little squares, my husband cut these little squares of wax paper. Probably can't see it, but it's just a little square, and I'm going to make it into a cone shape. Just roll it into a cone shape. And I'm going to fit that inside my, wait a minute, I don't have my hand. Inside my pointer here, like that. I'm not sure how I'm having trouble here. There we go. And then I'm just going to pack some of I'm going to push some of this in it. Down in the cone. And why did I put the paper in? Well, you'll see. Now the trick to this is, though, every time I do this, I want to make sure it's down in the hole, really down in the point. And I see there's some water came out, so it might be a little wet. I hope not. I found that I told you I was experimenting, so I found that my mixture seemed to be a little bit too wet to me. It was a little hard to work with. So I'm just adding a little more of my dry poppet mixture in it, because that's what I really do want. I really want to make sure that's incorporated. I don't think it's going to make that much difference. So I'm just going to do that, and I think that's going to work fine. Okay, so again, I take I think I can use that square, but it's hard. I'm not going to be able to use the paper again. It got too wet, and when it gets too wet, it falls apart. But if it's too dry, it just crumbles. So we need to have this. And I like to see that the paper's coming out the bottom. Then I know it's full, and then I can just start sticking it in here. Now, you people that love to criticize, some of you do, most of you are really nice, but every once in a while I get somebody criticizing me, saying, well, why didn't you figure this out before you showed us? Well, you're here to help. I'm here to help you learn. And so I really want to make sure it gets down inside. So I'm really pushing that down in. And ideally I will see it down at the tip. And I do see darkness down there, so I know it's the whole way. So this should work. And I want to try to get it clear to the top. Try to make it as even as I can so it sits straight. And see, I have enough paper left over that I can pull it out. And I'm going to carefully pull that out. And then unroll it. And look at that, it makes a really lovely tip. A really lovely cone shape. And I just pat it into place. And there we are. I put it on my little coated card. Now I could keep using that paper. I could use it again, but it's a little wet right now, so I'm going to let it dry. I'm going to put in a fresh paper while I do this, okay? Let me get this so that I have a really nice example for you. Rolling the cone. And again, I'm apologizing for my hands, but you know how to roll a cone. Okay. And again, I like to make sure that I make it small enough that I can see it down at the bottom. Coming out at the bottom. There we go. I can see it protruding at the bottom, so I know that it's a tight enough cone. And then I start putting it in and pushing it down. And I want to try to see it in the bottom as much as I can before I pull it back up. And now I can look, if I look in the tip, I can see it's brown down there. So I just keep going until I feel it's full. And I think like anything, you get a rhythm on this. I don't know. I think you just get used to what works. You get a feel for it. And now I pull it out. Oh, and this is a nice shaped cone. Until I dropped it. It was beautiful. It was nice and beautiful. But the good news is you can always tweak it a little bit. And I'm pushing down on it because I kind of broke it up when I dropped it. I kind of broke it. The thing is, you know, they're not going to be beautiful. I don't care. Remember, it's for intention. I said this before, the last thing we made is, I guess, for the poppet. It's not arts and crafts. This is witchcraft. This is magic. This is spell work. We don't do it because it's pretty. We do it because it works. We do it because we need it. Okay, and as you see, I'm just going to keep pushing them in. Now, you could probably have much better luck than I do, because I doubt anybody has any clumsier hands than I do. My hands are kind of clumsy. But regardless, you want to kind of work a little quickly because, again, we don't, you could probably use a parchment paper or something rather than the wax paper. I'm sort of old school about wax paper. I like wax paper a lot. But also, parchment paper can be really stiff. And wax paper is a little easier for me to work with. There I am. I'm looking in and I can see the darkness in the tip. I know you can't, but I just want to tell you that I know it's good. It's in there nice and snug. And then when I unroll it, oops, guess it wasn't. But again, it doesn't matter. They can be stubby. They can be stubby. I'm going to do one more because I want to make sure I really get a good one. And I have a couple minutes left on my clock. I have a timer set because my recording is going to shut off. But I just want to get this in here and show you if I can, the best I can. So I have something to pick up and show you. But anyway, I'm going to be back. When I come back with the actual poppet baptizing, I'll let you know anything more I found out about the incense cones at that point. But I do know if you do not use something like wax paper in these little mold things, if you try to get it out, it's just going to stick in there and it's not going to come. And that's not going to be... If it's dry enough that it doesn't stick, it's probably not wet enough to stay together until it dries. You want it to stay together until it dries. Okay. That feels like that's good. Be good. Pull that out. And that's a lovely one. Yeah. There we go. Well, until I knock the tip off. I think what's happening is I have some dry spots in here. So I'm just going to push it down and get it a little bit molded. There we go. Okay. I'm going to just continue to make them, and I'll show you my product when I'm all done. I don't want to go over my time or my machine's going to shut off. But I wanted to say to you, I hope these are helpful, these videos to help you. I like to bring you along when I'm learning, and you can learn too. And if you have any suggestions or you've done this before, we'd love to hear from you. So, again, I am Rebecca. Thank you so much for watching, and I wish you blessings.